Hello and welcome to the Brutal Iron Gym podcast, where our goal is to cut through the BS and deliver the brutal truth about topics related to health and happiness. So today's topic is training, and we're going to discuss body weight training. So this was brought up by a friend and a listener of the podcast, so I figured we would kind of dive into it and kind of go over like the good and the bad, the ugly, all that kind of stuff. So body weight training is a ridiculously broad term, because it's basically just exercise that involves your body weight and doesn't relate to kind of doesn't take into consideration intensity, effectiveness, or anything like that. So you can say like body weight training to some people can be like plyometric jumps, sprints, explosive type push-ups, where it's very aggressive training, which we'll get into. Like that is definitely going to be more effective style of training, bodyweight training, because you're putting more effort into it. And then it could also be the same as somebody doing like jazzercise classes. So I'm not against those, but there are two different worlds there. So one person might be, an athlete, like I said, doing like stadium sprints, bounds and jumps and leaps and stuff, doing explosive push-ups, maybe pull-ups, that kind of stuff. And then the other one is a person kind of trying to stay active, be busy, but really they're just kind of dancing to some music in a classroom. And that can be great for them because it brings social connection, emotional health, mental health. It's kind of fun. It's fun to dance. I mean, hell, everybody goes to nightclubs and dance clubs on the weekends, right? So we all pretty much do jazzercise. So if anybody wants to pick on it and they go to the club, well, that's exactly what they're doing. So I'm not against it, but I did want to kind of juxtapose those two categories because you can see how they fall under the category of bodyweight training, but they're worlds and worlds and worlds apart. Okay, so like I said, we're going to kind of go through these and kind of talk the good, the bad, and how, if we're going to do it, how do we get the best results from it, and how do we do it, quote unquote, the right way. So the person who kind of brought this topic to my attention said where they're at currently in their life, they're around people who do a lot of bodyweight based training. And they said the guys and girls, they're beasts, they're really strong, and they're impressed with them. However, they don't really have very large muscle. So they just kind of are lean, normal-looking people who are pretty good at moving themselves around. And they were kind of like, this person, like they kind of know why, but they wanted to know a little bit more why. So, and I thought it would be a great kind of area to start. So, bodyweight training, if you notice people, even who do it very explosively, the highest level of kind of calisthenic style training, they're gonna be very, very lean, but they're not gonna look like a bodybuilder. Now, you might find some people who look like bodybuilding that do calisthenics, but they also do bodybuilding. So I'm talking about people who purely only do bodyweight style training. They're not going to have very large muscles, so they will have their natural frame filled out, but they won't have large muscles similar to a bodybuilder. And part of the reason for that is we know, we've talked about this in the past, that our muscles can grow from essentially kind of two main styles of stimulus. One is sheer force, where we pick up a weight that is so heavy against the muscle it actually starts tearing and pulling the muscle apart. So it actually starts kind of tearing the fibers of the muscle. And our body would then respond, if we have excess food, by thickening, like repairing those tears and then thickening the muscle so it's more resilient to being torn again in the future. So that's how you get bigger muscle, as your body takes food, fills in the gaps, and thickens it up. Then the other one, other than sheer force, where it's something just really stupidly heavy and tears the muscle up, the other one is categorized as metabolic damage. It's basically where you do enough volume of workload within like a single set or over a workout or over the course of weeks and months and whatnot, where you ask the muscle to do more work than it's kind of made for. So you're asking it to do a lot more work capacity. Its structures to handle that work capacity are not as robust as it needs, so it responds by kind of thickening everything, reinforcing everything, and kind of just getting the muscle more ready for work. So that's kind of the two ways. And like one kind of, this is all very general, but it gives you the idea, okay? Is one way we can think of that is like sets of exercises to where the muscle is just burning like freaking crazy while you're trying to continue. And it's not that the weight has really gotten that heavy, it's just that the muscle hurts so damn bad and it's burning so bad that you have to stop the set. So that would be kind of characteristic of metabolic damage, is that it's not a sheer force that's tearing your muscle up. It's just, it's so damn miserable and it's an amount of work that your muscles are just burning and burning and burning. So those are the two ways that if we have caloric excess, okay, our body can respond by making thicker, larger muscles. If you do both of those styles of training, shearing forces and or metabolic damage, but you don't have extra calories, you will not get bigger muscles. So all the training does is it sets the stimulus in the environment for more muscle to be built. How it's built or what it's built by is your food, okay, specifically proteins. So if you don't have extra food, you can train like a bodybuilder, but you ain't going to look like one. And sometimes this is actually 100% what we want. And I will use that to my advantage. So when I'm getting males or females, and we want to get lean, say we want to lose body fat, we train freaking aggressively, tear up muscles, we beat the shit out of muscles, okay? Because then your body's going to invest a lot of calories trying to repair that muscle. And as long as we don't have a caloric surplus, it'll repair the muscle by kind of like reattaching it, filling in the gaps, bringing everything bound together and tighter, but it won't thicken it up. But that process of the body having to repair the muscle tissue burns a significant amount of calories. So that way, you might have only spent an hour in the gym, but the body might be busy for the next 12 hours trying to fix all those dang muscles that you beat up. So that's where using resistance style training, or training that causes muscular stress and damage, that can actually help you get leaner than just doing traditional cardio. So we've talked about this in a past podcast. Let me look up the numbers so I don't misquote it. But it's using muscle damage for fat loss, which is podcast number 181. So podcast 181 will explain how using resistance training and maintaining, kind of normal caloric level or even a slight caloric deficit if you're trying to lose body fat, how that can actually help you achieve your results faster. Okay? So, since that's what it takes to build muscle, shearing force or metabolic damage, the reason why bodyweight training doesn't often cause significant muscle growth like a bodybuilder is because if you're only using yourself, that means that the sheer force, like the amount of weight you can put on your muscles, is limited to just how much you weigh. Now, you can make that more aggressive. Like there's, we know the idea of like I can do bodyweight squats, where I'm squatting and my own body weight is kind of something that I have to lift, and that makes my body weight feel, like whatever it is. So if I weigh 150 pounds, I'm going to feel like I'm squatting myself 150 pounds. However, if I do a squat jump, to where at the top of the squat, I jump up in the air, then I have to kind of land, sink into the next, like the depth of the next squat, jump back up and land, sink into the next one. Now all of a sudden my body's having to absorb more than just my body weight. Because I'm jumping in the air, and as I'm coming down, I'm going to weigh kind of more because of gravity. So there are ways for you to kind of fudge or create an extra weight load, but again, that still only has the capacity of your own self eventually. So you can't keep jumping higher and higher, So if you try to jump off the top of a building to get more capacity, you're probably just going to break your legs. So that is going to be one limitation of bodyweight style training, is that your load capacity is finite. It's limited to how much you weigh. The other aspect is that if you're trying to get a muscular burn to get the metabolic damage effect, most people are going to run into cardiovascular limitations before they would run into a muscular burn limitation. And the reason why is because if we are able to load an exercise, let's say a bicep curl, if I can load that with an external weight, a dumbbell for example, then my muscle is going to run out of the ability to move that dumbbell faster than I would get out of breath doing a bicep curl. Make sense? But if I want to grow, say, my chest, and I have to do a bunch of push-ups to do that, and say I get really good at my body weight, I've met guys who can do 100 push-ups in a row, and actually legitimately really good push-ups. So not bullshit like 3/4 rep push-ups. And they just get out of breath before their muscles actually start burning that badly. So we've tried to do a bunch of weird positions, like they'll put their hands really close together, like a diamond position if they want to hit their triceps extra, or they'll kind of elevate their hands on something and try to sink lower down into the stretch of the push-up if they want to get their chest. So there are ways you can kind of manipulate your positions. But again, everything's going to be finite in the sense that there's only so much of yourself you can manipulate. Eventually, your body weight will have an end range limit. So that's why they will get like decent development for sure for muscular development, but they won't have anything abnormal above, like, this is going to sound weird to say, but I want to say they won't have anything above average. But our standard of what we consider muscular average nowadays is pretty damn pathetic because most people are out of shape, myself included. I'm not super duper, shredded, so I'm not calling you guys fat asses. I'm a fat ass too. But if we think of, like, say, people in the 1800s who were like farmers and they worked hard, we would have kind of considered somebody who, if you could see their abs, we would have just said they were normal. Okay? So, like, that's why a lot of people do bodyweight style training. You'll be able to see their abs, and they have okay physiques and stuff, but they're not going to look, like bodybuilders. They're not going to have huge, rounded muscle bellies. So, and like I said, if they do, that would only be because they're adding resistance training on top of their bodyweight style training, which is definitely what we recommend, and we're going to get to that here at the end. So, that big, long ramble is why bodyweight style training will build some muscle, but it doesn't build anything above, like, kind of normal, what your body structure would allow kind of muscle. Then, as in terms of strength, bodyweight style training will make you strong, but it only makes you strong in what is considered a very specific area of strength, which is relative strength. So when we look at the world of strength, there's a lot of types of strength. So the one that we most often think of is absolute strength. That's what is the heaviest thing I can move. So how much you bench. So when somebody says how much you bench, they're saying what's your absolute strength of bench press. Okay? What body weight does is, since you're really going to be limited to just your body weight, you can't test absolute strength. You can't build absolute strength. What you're going to do is you're going to get really good at moving yourself. So that is relative strength. So you have strength relative to your body weight, but you don't have absolute strength. So those guys that I know that could do 100 push-ups, they can't bench 405. And now there's like I'm sure maybe there's one of them. What I'm saying here is, in general, is they're not going to be that great at 1 rep maxes. Now, if you have a guy who can bench 500, it certainly doesn't mean he can do 100 push-ups. And I would argue that he's probably not even going to come close to it. So these are different types of strength. So absolute strength doesn't have a lot of endurance to it. And just because they can bench 500 pounds, hell, they might weigh 250, so they're only benching twice their body weight. Whereas I might have a guy who's 160, who does like a lot of body weight style training, and they might be able to bench like a little over 2 times their body weight, something like that. So kind of relative to their body weight, people who do body weight style training are going to be strong. But are they going to be absolute strong in like 1 rep maxes? No, not at all. Because that's not what they're training for. So if I move myself around a lot, I get good at moving myself around a lot. If I lift really heavy things for 1 rep, I get good at lifting really heavy things for 1 rep. So you're only going to get good at what you spend time doing. That kind of makes sense, right? So that's kind of the little bit of background, is that bodyweight style training, done aggressively, done well, done quote-unquote correctly, it gets you muscle where maybe you had weak areas. It gets you stronger, but relative strength, not absolute strength. It can improve athleticism. It can improve like your speed and power output and kind of just how athletic you feel. However, you would be able to improve upon that if you did resistance-loaded exercises compared to just body weight. So bodyweight stuff will make you feel somewhat like an athlete, but if you added resistance-style training, you would feel even more like an athlete. And then will people who do bodyweight style training be lean? Most likely, because they're burning calories while they're working out, but they're not burning any calories in any more special way than anybody else doing any other type of conditioning that doesn't cause a lot of muscular damage. So it's kind of like if I went for a hike up a mountain, I'm going to, cause a little bit of muscular stress to my legs, but not as much as like a bodybuilder doing a 40-minute leg workout. So they're going to get some leanness due to being active, but it's not anything special compared to any other type of activity. Okay? So that would be kind of like if we had the best case scenario of bodyweight style training. So is that you're going to get pretty good results in all those areas that we just explained, and that would be stuff that is done typically with 10 to 60 seconds of time under tension. So all their bodyweight style movements are going to be sets of 10 to 60 seconds. And that could be things on like a TRX. It can be explosive jumps, like we said. It can be, explosive push-ups. It can be pull-up variations. There's a lot of weird stuff people do. Calisthenics is a pretty broad range of exercise variations. So that would be kind of the best case scenario of how to use bodyweight style training, is exercises of 10 to 60 seconds. and that's what you find difficult. So if you can do it for more than 60 seconds, you probably need to stop doing that because it's wasting your time. If you can't even do it for 10 seconds, I'd argue whether it's going to be effective because you don't have a lot of time or attention doing it. So I do something for 1 second, I'm going to have to do a shitload of it to try to get any results out of it. So if you're under 10 seconds, you have to do a lot of sets, and it would be arguable whether it's even effective or not. So if you want to do bodyweight style training correctly, those are your parameters. Okay? So we're going to come back here. Another thing is there was an article that I got led to about how to use, is bodyweight style training effective for joint health and recovery in regards to recovery from other styles of training? Yes, it can be when structured correctly. These are always really dorky answers because I'm always going to say, like, yes, if done correctly. So, because if I'm trying to do bodyweight activity for recovery, that means that I already have muscular damage, I already have joint damage. So maybe I'm lifting weights twice a week, and I want to do 2 other workouts a week with just body weight because I don't have time to go to the gym or, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, well, what's the appropriate type of stuff to do? If I'm already lifting really heavy on this other day, what should I do with body weight? Well, you would do stuff that challenges your muscles but doesn't challenge your joints. So if a bodyweight squat felt good, it got blood pumping in your legs were burning and you felt good and it was a node negative, that's great, you would stay with that. But if all of a sudden you tried to do bodyweight squat jumps and then you're like, dang man, the front of my knee's kind of hurting, well then that's too much. You need to stop doing that. So you would try to find, okay, what are activities that muscularly feel very challenging, they're kicking my butt, but I don't feel any joint stress, I don't feel any joint pain. So that would be kind of the way for you to do bodyweight style training correct for the purpose of recovery and joint health, is to find stuff that aggravates muscles but not joints. And that can be difficult because sometimes, like I know the person who messaged this topic to me, they have a situation in which they have to do running, quite a bit of running. So they might have disproportionate amount of stress in their lower body joints as compared to their upper body joints. So they might have ankle, knee, and maybe even a hip or low back issue. So their lower body weight training for recovery might have to be really low level, kind of dorky stuff, almost pure rehabby type stuff. But maybe with their upper body, they can do pull-ups, like pull-up eccentrics, pull-up negatives. Maybe they can do renegade rows. They can do push-up variations, like explosive style push-ups. They might be able to be more aggressive on their upper body. So you may have to segment and kind of break off structure the different areas of your body to train each area the best you could. So if you're thinking of it as joint health, is okay, think of my joints. What can I do that's effective to the musculature of my arms but doesn't hurt my wrist, my shoulders, or my elbows? What can I do that's effective to the musculature of my core but doesn't hurt my lower back? What can I do for the musculature of my legs that doesn't hurt my ankles, my knees, and my hips? So you might have to segment all that out and find out what's the best combination for you. Okay? And then sometimes people will say, like, oh, I got into bodyweight style training, I was lifting heavy weights, but man, that stuff just caused you to get hurt. Like, you're always just hurting when you lift heavy things. That's not safe. No, lifting heavy things like a dumbass with bad form is not safe. So just learn how to lift correctly, and you'll get rid of a lot of those pains and aches. And that includes weight load capacity. So sometimes people are, like, say, squatting relatively well formed, but they look like shit, and they're, like, dying under the bar because the weight's way too heavy for them. So I actually just talked to an online client today, and they showed me a video of a 1-rep max that they had tried. It wasn't in the program. I didn't even bother trying to argue with them about that because we're still in a new part of our relationship, so I have to be friendly. So I congratulated them on their squat because it actually looked pretty darn good for being 1-rep max. It was 30 pounds heavier than what they had kind of previously said their max was. However, it wasn't quite to parallel. It was about 1 inch above parallel. And they had a little bit of like a kind of a scooping effect as they came up in our programming, and we talked about this when we first met, was that they were going to have to work on upper hamstrings and glute training. So they were going to have to build their butt and their hamstrings. So what happens is when they got to the bottom of the squat, they went to come up, their butt and hamstrings can't handle that 1-rep max yet, so their knees shot forward and they locked out the squat with their quads. So they got the squat done. It was 1 inch above parallel, but they didn't die. And they survived. And then they asked if they should bump their training max numbers up to reflect the new number. And my answer was no. because even though you moved that weight, the quality of how you moved it wasn't what we want. So we want to have full depth. We don't want to have to scoop our knees forward. So I want to say congratulations to the person for the fact that they were able to kind of mentally attack something that would have been scary maybe. They were able to kind of get most of their cues correctly. Really, the body position changes that the person had throughout the lift was just physical, like their body couldn't have moved it in a different position. So it wasn't like they voluntarily broke form. The body just went to that form because that was the only way it was going to move that weight. And I told them was the reason why we would never, ever, ever want to adjust our training to that max number. Whenever we never adjust it to a max that isn't crystal clear perfect, because you'll start to lose track of your ego. That's when people all of a sudden all their squats are an inch above parallel. All of a sudden they're lifting things a little too heavy. They get a hip pain, a knee pain, an ankle pain, or if they're a competitive powerlifter, they go to a competition and the judges say their squats aren't low enough, and then they want to blame the judges. Bullshit. The judges are educated. They know what they're doing. So if you didn't squat parallel, you didn't squat parallel. And so that's what I told them is in everything we do, we want our movements to be highest quality first, then the heaviest weight possible. And what that does, it allows them to be safe in the long run. So anybody who says they heavy lifting hurts you, it's because they're not doing heavy lifting correctly. So it doesn't mean as you get older, for example, in your, say, 40s, 50s, 60s, the worst possible thing you could do for your health would be to avoid doing resistance training exercise. That's proven fact. There's articles out the wazoo. So the more you load the bones of your body, the bones and muscles of your body, the more you get to keep them. The second you downgrade what the heaviest thing is that you do, you downgrade your health. Okay? Now, I work with, I've had well over 1,000 clients. I've been personal training for 17 years. I went to school for health and phys ed. I have a personal training certification through American College of Sports Medicine, back when it was even better than what it is now. You had to have a better degree and better qualifications for it how you used to be able to get it. And then I have a master's in nutrition. So I have really good formal education around older people in nutrition and physical activity. And all of those classes in my first-hand experience with clients will tell you that you have to load the body with weight. So that's the best way to fight rheumatoid arthritis or any type of arthritis. That's the best way to fight osteoporosis. It's the best way to fight diabetes because your muscles have to fix and repair themselves. That actually burns up sugar. So there is an enormous, enormous, enormous amount of benefit to resistance-loaded movements. So as you get older, don't say, well, I'm getting too old to lift heavy. No, you're an absolute idiot if you give up heavy lifting as you get older. Okay? That's what's going to keep you young. That's what's going to keep you mobile, keep you moving. So do not give up heavy lifting as you get older. Okay? So you just need to learn how to do it right and do it safely. Cool. Okay, so that's enough of me ranting here for a second. So, okay, so the last thing I want to kind of cover, and then we'll go over a summary here, is what are the bad ways of doing kind of bodyweight training. And unfortunately, this does happen, and unfortunately, I am now going to pick on the jazzercise class. So, if you do bodyweight style stuff, and especially very lightly weighted things, so I'm not super duper familiar with all the things that are out there nowadays in terms of other companies and classes and other business offerings and whatnot. So, because there's I don't know, there's Orange Theory, there's Burn Boot Camps, there's probably 4 million other things I have absolutely no clue of. But what they'll be is an open room. You got some psycho chick hopped up on caffeine in the front with a microphone. And I love those people, by the way, though, so I'm picking in a nice way. I love people that can be that positive and that enthusiastic about helping others, so it's a great thing. But they're usually really peppy. So, and if you ever go to a morning class, they're annoyingly peppy. So they're going to be up front. It's a big open room, and you're going to be dancing around, kind of moving yourself. There might be some light-weighted equipment, so maybe. But usually the facility that these classes are in is going to keep the type of equipment variety very low cost as well. Because they're just trying to pull in a lot of money from all the people coming to classes, and they're not going to want to spend it on a bunch of equipment. So I've seen classes where people have these small little sandbag discs. There's classes where people have these lightly weighted barbells. So it's like a 5-pound bar that you can put up to 20 pounds extra onto it or something like that. There's a whole bunch of other stuff. Sometimes there's like, steps. You can do step-up jumps on it. You can do other type of body weight positions on it. But in general, these are body weight pure only and or very, very, very lightly weighted stuff, like say 25 pounds or less. Okay? Now, those classes are really good for cardio. They will help you burn calories to help you have cardiovascular stress. They don't do anything else. Sorry to burst your bubble there. So the people who sell you those classes, they're going to tell you that it's going to make you stronger. They're lying. They're full of shit. They're assholes. Now, anybody listening to this who does this, you're going to be mad at me. But let's think about this. What are you really telling those people? So if you tell the people, hey, come do my jazzercise class or my lightly weighted class and you're going to get stronger. No, you're not. They're going to get less pathetic. That's it. So if right now they have no strength, they're going to get to a little bit more than no strength. But they're not going to get strong. Okay? They're going to, they're just less pathetic, not strong. There's a huge difference in that. And it's a misconception all the time because I get asked that all the time. So whereas somebody will come in and they'll say, like in a roundabout way, they don't look the way that they want to look. They're like, they don't have the muscle shape, the leanness. They're like, man, I'm in the gym all the time. I'm going to these classes like 5 days a week. But I feel soft. I look soft. I don't look like the girls in the magazine. And I'm like, well, when you sign up for those classes, like all it is cardio. It's not going to make you strong. And overwhelmingly, every single one of those people come back and they say, well, they told me it would get me stronger. And then I have to answer back that no, it's just going to get you less pathetic. It is not going to make you strong. And let's think about it is, if the strongest thing you lift, let's say, is 25 pounds, how is that going to make you stronger at lifting anything heavier than 25 pounds? Hell, you're going to go home and lift a 40-pound bag of like cat food, and that's going to be more work than you did that whole damn class. You're only as strong as the strongest thing you make yourself do. So if I get myself progressed up in time to squatting, like, say, my body weight on a bar on my back, well, that's pretty damn strong. Now, that is going to get you strong because now you're actually asking yourself to do things that are heavy. If the heaviest thing you do in that class is move your own ass, then you're not going to be any stronger than just moving your own self. So you're only as strong as the heaviest thing that you make yourself do repeatedly. That just makes sense, okay? Let's think of it that way. So if there's a 10-pound sand disk that I have to slide around and move from this place to that place, that's not bad. You're burning calories. It's a good exercise. But is moving a 10-pound sand disk going to make you stronger at moving anything heavier than 10 pounds? No. It will not. Okay? So you are going to get stronger than what you are now, but you're not going to get strong. So that's important to look at. Then, are you going to get more muscle? No. Probably not. Because, what are the two ways we build muscle? Sheer force. You're not lifting anything heavy enough to sheer force, like tear a muscle apart. So think of tearing a piece of steak apart. So if you hung a 2-pound dumbbell, like from a hook on a piece of steak, it ain't going to tear the steak open, right? You're going to need to actually create like physical force and actually pull and tear at that steak. So if you take a steak at home, like a sirloin steak, and think what you would have to do to rip that apart. That's what you have to do weight-wise to rip muscle apart to get it to grow. So we don't have anything heavy enough sheer force. And then like we said before, are you getting a muscular burn in the muscle before you actually run out of breath? Which is happening for you? Are you running out of breath or are you getting a muscular burn during activities? You might be getting a little bit of a blend of both, so therefore you're going to maybe get some muscle development. But you're probably only going to get the muscles that are the weakest muscles to develop. You're probably not going to get actual large muscle development in regards to creating shape, muscular shape, like an hourglass type figure that you would want. So most women, unfortunately, when they do these classes, is you keep the same amount of muscle you have, or you actually lose a little bit because you're under eating, and then you lose the fat over top those muscles. So you don't have this beautiful Greek goddess kind of muscular shape underneath all that fat. You never built that. And actually, if you're under eating and you're doing really lightweight activity, that muscle, that beautiful muscle, is actually going bye-bye. Okay, you're actually losing muscle. So that's what ends up happening is they'll lose fat, but they lose fat down to what muscle you have. Well, if you don't have any muscle, you don't have any shape, and that's why it doesn't look the way you want it to look. Okay?